You did everything right today, and your body is about to punish you for it anyway, starting the moment the sun goes down. You ate clean, you walked at lunch, you skipped the office donuts, and you drank every drop of water on your desk. And then evening arrived, quietly, the way it always does, and everything you built during the day started unraveling without you noticing. Not from one dramatic mistake, not from a cheat meal, but from 7 small evening habits almost nobody connects to their stomach. Here's the part that will change how you think about fat loss for the rest of your life, starting right now. Your body does not burn fat evenly across 24 hours, no matter what the calorie counters on your phone are telling you. It burns the most fat during one specific overnight window driven by growth hormone, low cortisol, and low insulin working together. But that window only opens if the hours before you sleep are handled with real precision, not guesswork. You can be flawless all day long and still slam that window shut before it ever gets the chance to open. Researchers publishing in Cell Metabolism found something that should unsettle anyone who thinks calories are the whole story. People who aligned their eating and activity with their natural circadian rhythm carried significantly less visceral fat than late eaters. Same total calories, same food on the plate, completely different result on the scale, purely from evening timing. 7 habits decide which version of that evening you're living through, and most people are only aware of 2. Stick with me, because habit number 4 is the one you do specifically to unwind after a brutal day. It feels earned, it feels harmless, and it is quietly suppressing your overnight fat burning by 90 full minutes. Before we go further, tell me honestly, what time do you usually eat your last meal of the day? And what do you actually do in the 2 hours before your head hits the pillow every single night? I want to know exactly where the people watching this video right now are actually starting from tonight. Now let's talk about the biology, because this is where everything finally starts to make sense. 3 separate hormonal processes are supposed to unfold between your last bite of dinner and deep sleep. First, insulin has to fall, because after eating, insulin rises to clear glucose out of your bloodstream. For overnight fat burning to even begin, insulin needs to drop below a threshold where growth hormone can operate. That drop takes roughly 2 to 3 hours after a normal-sized meal, sometimes longer if the meal was heavy. Second, cortisol has to fall, because cortisol follows a natural daily curve that peaks in the morning. It's supposed to decline steadily all day, hitting its lowest point during the first half of your sleep. Anything that keeps cortisol elevated in the evening compresses that fall and steals your fat-burning window. Third, melatonin has to rise exactly on schedule, and melatonin does far more than just make you drowsy. It coordinates the precise timing of your growth hormone release, the hormone actually responsible for burning fat overnight. Delay melatonin, and you delay, shorten, or completely suppress the growth hormone pulse that depends on it. 7 evening habits decide whether these 3 hormonal processes run smoothly or get interrupted before they finish their job. Habit number 1 is eating a light dinner instead of treating it as the biggest meal of the day. In most households, dinner is the main event, the biggest portion, the most effort, the emotional reward for surviving. But your largest meal at night does something specific and damaging to your overnight biology that nobody warns you about. Insulin sensitivity follows its own circadian rhythm, highest in the morning and steadily declining as the day goes on. The exact same carbohydrates eaten at 7 at night spike your insulin far higher than they would at 8 in the morning. Your pancreas has to release more insulin to clear the same glucose load once evening arrives. More insulin released means insulin lingers longer into the night, pushing your fat-burning window later and shorter. A study in the journal Obesity tracked 2 groups eating identical total calories across the entire day. One group made lunch their biggest meal. The other made dinner their biggest meal. Nothing else changed. The lunch-focused group lost significantly more weight and significantly more visceral fat over 12 full weeks. Same food, same total intake, and the only variable was simply when the calories were eaten. David, a 45-year-old engineer, started making lunch his main event and dinner something simple: grilled fish, vegetables, nothing heavy, replacing the pasta and rice he used to eat every single night. 6 weeks later, his belt fit differently, and he hadn't counted a single calorie the entire time. You don't need to skip dinner or make it miserable, you just need to shrink it and lighten it. More protein, more vegetables, fewer starchy carbs, less total volume, and your hormonal environment shifts before you even sleep. Habit number 2 is eating dinner too late, which modern schedules make almost impossible to avoid. You get home at 7, you cook or order, you finally sit down around 8 or 8:30. You finish eating by 9, you're in bed by 11, leaving just 2 hours before your body shuts down. Here's why that 2-hour gap is nowhere near enough time for your hormones to reset. After a normal dinner, insulin stays elevated for 2 to 3 hours while your body processes the meal. Falling asleep 2 hours after eating means insulin is still well above baseline right as you close your eyes. Insulin and growth hormone are direct opposites, and when one is high, the other gets shut down completely. A study in endocrine reviews confirmed that late eating independently suppressed nocturnal growth hormone in otherwise healthy adults. Not sick people, not people with metabolic disease, just ordinary healthy adults eating slightly too close to bedtime. The fix is a strict 3-hour gap between your final bite of food and your intended sleep time. If you're asleep by 11, dinner needs to be finished by 8. No exceptions, no negotiating with yourself. If your schedule genuinely won't allow that, at minimum make dinner smaller so insulin clears faster than usual. A light meal processes quickly, and combining it with earlier timing multiplies the benefit of both changes together. Habit number 3 is sitting down immediately after dinner instead of moving your body for just 10 minutes. This is the habit naturally lean people skip without ever consciously deciding to skip it in the first place. Think about people in your life who stay lean seemingly without trying, and watch what they do after eating. They move. Not intensely, not at the gym, just a walk around the block or down the street. In Italy, they call it the passeggiata. In Japan, it's simply an after-dinner walk nobody even comments on. Neither culture considers it exercise, yet it does something remarkable to your overnight fat burning that most people miss. After dinner, glucose is flooding your bloodstream, and insulin rises to sweep it into storage somewhere in your body. If you sit still, your muscles have zero demand for that glucose, so insulin has to work overtime. Walking for just 10 minutes activates a glucose transporter called GLUT4 that pulls sugar straight into your muscles. This transporter works completely independently of insulin, meaning your blood sugar drops without your pancreas straining at all. Blood sugar peaks lower, insulin rises less, insulin falls sooner, and your overnight fat-burning window opens earlier tonight. A study in diabetes care found a 10-minute walk after dinner cut post-meal blood sugar by 22%. 10 minutes, around the block, no gym clothes required, no elevated heart rate, nothing complicated about it whatsoever. Stack this with eating earlier from habit 2, and you're protecting your fat-burning window from 2 directions at once. Habit number 4 is the one you're doing right now to relax, and it's sabotaging you in silence. Dinner's done, the dishes are cleared, and you finally feel like you've earned a few hours to unwind completely. So you sink into the couch, turn on the television, or scroll your phone until your eyes get heavy. It feels like exactly what you deserve after the day you just survived. And honestly, that feeling makes sense. But 2 separate things are happening during those hours that almost nobody connects back to their stubborn belly fat. First, blue light, the specific wavelength your screen emits that closely mimics the exact wavelength of midday sunlight. Your retina reads that light and sends your brain a false signal, telling it that it's still daytime outside. Melatonin production gets suppressed or delayed. And remember, melatonin coordinates the timing of your overnight growth hormone pulse.
Delay melatonin, and you delay the entire fat-burning cascade that was supposed to follow right behind it. A study in PNAS found evening blue light exposure suppressed melatonin onset by a full 90 minutes on average. It also reduced slow-wave sleep specifically, the exact sleep phase where growth hormone peaks and does its work. Not your total amount of sleep, the quality of the single most important phase inside that sleep. Second, stimulating content keeps cortisol elevated, and your nervous system can't tell the difference between stress and excitement. Whether it's frightening news or a thrilling show, both keep cortisol higher than it should be heading into sleep. And cortisol that's still elevated at the moment you fall asleep directly suppresses your growth hormone release that night. The fix is a firm screen cutoff, 60 minutes before your intended sleep time, not when you finally feel tired. That window gives melatonin the space to rise naturally and gives cortisol room to fall without more stimulation feeding it. Replace the screen time with something that emits no blue light at all, something genuinely calming instead. A physical book, quiet music, or a slow, unhurried conversation with someone sitting in the same room as you. Habit number 5 is waiting until bedtime to actually prepare your sleep environment instead of preparing it earlier. Naturally lean people tend to keep their bedrooms cool and dark, not just when they climb into bed. From earlier in the evening, long before they're actually tired, their environment is already quietly working in their favor. Here's why the timing of that preparation matters so much more than people assume it does. Your core body temperature has to drop by 1 to 2 degrees to enter deep, restorative, slow-wave sleep. This isn't a preference or a luxury, it's a hard physiological requirement for the phase where growth hormone peaks. Lower your bedroom temperature an hour or two before sleep, and your body starts that decline well ahead of time. Deep sleep arrives faster, and your growth hormone pulse happens exactly when it's supposed to happen that night. Cool the room only as you climb into bed, and your body starts that temperature drop from a warm baseline. Deep sleep takes longer to reach, and your fat-burning window gets compressed before it ever fully opens. Darkness follows the same exact logic, and dimming your lights an hour early lets melatonin rise naturally ahead of time. By the time you actually lie down, melatonin is already climbing instead of only just beginning its slow rise.
A study in the journal Diabetes found sleeping at 66 degrees increased brown fat activity by 42%. The effect was even stronger when the room was cooled earlier in the evening rather than only at bedtime. Same exact temperature, dramatically greater fat-burning effect, purely from preparing your environment earlier instead of later. The fix is treating your bedroom setup as part of your evening routine, not something rushed at the last second. 60 to 90 minutes before sleep, lower the thermostat, dim the lights, and let your environment shift ahead of you. Habit number 6 is snacking after dinner in front of the television, and this one quietly cancels everything else. Dinner was reasonable, you walked afterward, you turned off your screens early, you did every single thing right tonight. And then 90 minutes later, your hand reaches for something on the coffee table without you consciously deciding anything. Chips, chocolate, ice cream, crackers, not because you're hungry, but simply because you're sitting there and food is nearby. This habit is driven almost entirely by your environment, not by actual appetite or genuine physical hunger at all. Here's the specific damage it causes to everything you've built throughout the rest of the entire day. Every time you eat after dinner, even a small amount, your pancreas releases insulin in response. No exceptions whatsoever. Doing this late in the evening spikes insulin at the exact moment your body is trying to bring it down. Insulin that should be falling toward its overnight floor gets pushed back up right when it matters most. Your growth hormone release window gets delayed or suppressed entirely for that specific night, undoing hours of good habits. Insulin sensitivity is at its lowest point in the evening, meaning late food triggers a bigger insulin response per calorie. A study in obesity found late-night snacking was independently linked to visceral fat, even with total calories controlled. The effect was dose-dependent. worse with high glycemic foods, and consistent across nearly every participant studied in the research. Lisa, a teacher, ate a genuinely healthy dinner every single night, but had a bowl of ice cream at 9. Moving that ice cream to an occasional weekend treat before 6 was the only change she made to her routine. Her belly fat responded within 4 weeks from one small shift in timing. Nothing else in her diet changed. The fix here is environmental, not about willpower, because willpower runs out and your environment doesn't need to. Keep snack foods out of the television room entirely, out of easy reach during the evening hours specifically. Replace the actual snacking behavior, not just the food, with something that satisfies the habit without spiking insulin. Herbal tea works best here. Warm, flavorful, something to hold and sip, with zero measurable insulin response at all. Habit number 7, the final one, is going straight from activity to bed without any transition period whatsoever. Most people end their evening one of 2 ways, both of which quietly work against their own biology. Either they watch television until they feel tired and drag themselves to bed, still wired and mentally engaged, or they're doing something active or stimulating and then abruptly decide it's time to sleep immediately afterward. Neither approach allows the cortisol decline that deep restorative sleep genuinely requires in order to happen properly. Cortisol needs roughly 60 to 90 minutes to fall from daytime levels down to its lowest nighttime point. That fall doesn't happen instantly the moment you decide to sleep. It follows a curve that needs quiet time. Go from stimulation straight to bed, and cortisol is still elevated right as your sleep is supposed to begin. Deep sleep becomes harder to reach, and the largest, most important growth hormone pulse of the night gets delayed.
A study in Sleep Medicine Reviews found a 30-minute wind-down routine significantly reduced cortisol at sleep onset. It also improved deep sleep quality and was linked to noticeably higher overnight growth hormone secretion in every participant. The routine doesn't need to be elaborate. It just needs to happen consistently, night after night, without exception. A warm bath or shower raises your skin temperature briefly, and the cooling afterward speeds up deep sleep onset. Reading a physical book occupies your mind calmly, without the boredom that usually pushes people back toward their screens. 5 minutes of gentle stretching directly activates your parasympathetic nervous system, telling your body it's finally safe to rest. 10 minutes of unstructured journaling clears the mental clutter your brain would otherwise replay while you're trying to fall asleep. You don't need every single one of these, just 2 or 3 done consistently, night after night after night. Consistency creates the pattern. The pattern creates your cortisol baseline, and that baseline determines how fully growth hormone releases. So here's the complete picture. 7 evening habits that decide whether your nights burn fat or waste the opportunity entirely. A lighter dinner means insulin rises less and falls faster, protecting your overnight window from the very start. Eating dinner after 8 means insulin is still elevated at sleep onset, directly suppressing your overnight growth hormone release. A 10-minute walk after dinner clears glucose before insulin has to spike, pulling your fat-burning window open earlier. Screens until bedtime suppress melatonin by 90 minutes and keep cortisol elevated, attacking your window from both directions simultaneously. Cooling and darkening your bedroom 90 minutes early gives your body time to begin its required nightly transitions properly. Post-dinner snacking spikes insulin at precisely the moment it needs to fall, blocking fat burning for that entire night. A 30-minute screen-free wind-down lets cortisol finish its evening decline before sleep begins, enabling a fuller hormone pulse. Here's what I need you to actually understand before you close this out and go back to your evening. Your daytime discipline does not guarantee overnight fat burning, no matter how perfect your morning and afternoon actually were. You can eat well, walk, hydrate, manage stress, and still shut down your fat-burning window with the wrong evening. The evening isn't downtime from fat loss. It's actually the setup for the most important fat-burning event of your day,
Lean people aren't white-knuckling through their evenings or depriving themselves of rest, comfort, or genuine enjoyment at all. They simply have evening patterns that work with their biology instead of quietly working against it every single night. Most of them never consciously chose these patterns. They just developed slowly over years without anyone explaining the reason why. Now you know exactly what those patterns look like and exactly why each one matters more than it seems. Try one change tonight, just one, and notice what actually happens over the following week without forcing anything else.